What is going on, man? We are back in black in the building. Did just come back? Oh, damn. We'll try again next week. Shout out to everybody out there at the Core Plantation doing what they need to do to survive. So shout out to you. Shout out to everybody out there. Roll call. Shout out to everybody out there in Arizona. Shout out to the homegirl, Latanya Messiah in Arizona. Shout out to all my siblings in Vegas, Nevada, scratching and surviving, working hard, doing what they need to do. Shout out to the homegirl Jerica as well in Las Vegas, Nevada. So shout out to her, working hard, handling business. That's one thing that I love about Jerica. Jerica's not no smiley motherfucker. You ain't gonna just walk up to her, hey man, how you doing? She gonna be like, who the fuck are you and why the fuck you in my face? I love that. That taught me a lot about how to conduct yourself at the Core Plantation too. She is not smiley, and that's what you want. So shout out to the homegirl Jerica. Shout out to the homegirl Shawnee from Philly, who put me on to blackandnoble.com. So shout out to the homegirl Shawnee all the way in Philly. Shout out to her family. Her family went through a real, trying time over these last, few years, man. It's been very, very difficult. I did a podcast about it. Go look it up. Yup. So much power and respect to her family. So shout out to my sis, Shawnee in Philly. Shout out to the homegirl Erica, all the way from Florida, aka Florida. She be putting me on the game too. She was the first person to be like, Warren, don't worry about that shit. That nigga ain't even on that app. Blackitup.com. Get your old ass out of here, nigga. Shout out to the homegirl Erica, all the way from Florida. And shout out to my brothers, James Youngblood, Mike Drop. Go check him out on Instagram. He be posting shit on there. It's his platform. His platform is tight than a motherfucker. It's very futuristic. And he be spitting real knowledge and real game. So y'all better go check him out. Shout out to my brother James Youngblood, all the way in Texas. And don't forget my brother Dave for No Compromise. Check out the No Compromise podcast and check out him on Instagram. No Compromise. Go check it out. He be dropping jewels. I like it. We gonna get the live together now that I'm able to get in the groove and figure out what a schedule is gonna be like. Now I can hit these brothers up because we in 3 different time zones: Central, Eastern, and I was Pacific. So that's why we had to do that. But we're going to get it together. So shout out to my brother Dave for No Compromise. Man, we about to get into it today. Y'all know I couldn't wait. The benign neglect. Your boy Steve from Django, Steve Harvey, and Kamala, who wants to identify as a foundational Black American, but she is not. She grew up as an East Indian. Her parents have no ties to this ancestral foundational Black American ground that we built, and now they're teaming up together to perform what is called the benign neglect policy. Let's get it. Man. I got some audio I want y'all to hear. I'm pretty sure people been talking about it, but I want y'all to hear it anyway because it is very important that we start knowing. And see, they're running out of options. So now they got the Sambos and the Mammies and they got all of them. So I want y'all to hear this. And then I might pull up Dr. Claude Anderson as he speaks about the benign neglect policy. I'm not even going to talk about it. I want y'all to hear Dr. Claude Anderson's point of view. But first, we're going to hear Steve Harvey and Kamala Harris get up there and be so performative and pretend like, oh, now she's got to be the president for all people. Stop. You vote your interest. But that's okay. I ain't going to say shit no more. I'm just going to find Dr. Claude Anderson's video. But first, I'm going to play this. So y'all listen to this.
Look, I've been reading this paper because I got to stay to the, I got a headache trying to stay on course. So just let me go off this paper for a minute.
And that's exactly why they have the people that they have speaking. First of all, y'all better go listen to Cat Williams. Cat Williams was not lying about Steve Harvey. You can't speak like Agent Smith told Neo in The Matrix. Well, how are you going to do that when you can't speak? And he couldn't speak. Steve Harvey would be better off sewing his mouth shut. He sounds like a country bumpkin that don't know what the fuck is going on and like somebody paid him. So let's listen.
Before y'all start calling my radio show and DMing me, talking about why you ain't asked no hard-hitting questions, that ain't...
You see how he already nigga-splaining. So listen some more.
What this is. I'm throwing a lob. This is an alley-oop for a dunk. Because this administration needs to get the word out of what they're actually doing and what they're actually accomplishing so we can stop all this foolishness about what you're doing for black people.
See? Now, this was the same bald-headed, wig-wearing motherfucker that was all up in Trump face 4 or 5 years ago. And now he's sitting with her talking about, we need to stop all this foolishness. That's some sucker-ass shit from a sucker motherfucker who did Bernie Mac out of line. That's why Bernie Mac didn't fuck with that motherfucker, because he's a hoe. That's why. Then you gonna go to Bernie Mac funeral, apologize. I want to apologize. And nigga, you a sucker motherfucker. You're not funny. You were not no headliner, nowhere near where, you were never nobody. This is the problem. First of all, you was wearing a wig, acting like you was going to the barber and getting a taper. I remember this girl I dated in high school, her stepfather said, that nigga's wearing a wig. In 96, when he was hosting fucking Apollo. I'm like, damn, his taper be tight. He's like, that nigga's wearing a wig. That's not real. In 96. And then they finally made fun of him, and then he cut. How you go from a taper to bald? Nigga, you hair unit, bald head motherfucking having that. Nigga, get your whole ass out of here, nigga. The fuck out of here. And you did that disrespectful shit to Bernie Mac, who's a fucking comedy legend. So nah, Bernie Mac wasn't fucking with you, nigga. We the people ain't fucking with you. And see, you notice a lot of black comedians are back, and they're not just being on the take. And y'all need to go out there and vote because they know, like, well, hold on, man. What you plan on doing? Because it's black people that's struggling. But then you got this hoe ass nigga up here talking about, well, we gonna stop all this foolishness. Nigga, didn't you say I'd be a big monkey for $10 million? That's why they like hoe ass niggas like him. He has no integrity or no intrinsic value, and he a hoe. So remember that.
Can't nobody come out with no agenda and call it this for black people.
Yes, they can come out with an agenda that's called just for black people. They did it for the Native Americans who received their reparations, their land, their reservations, their resources, and everything else. So I don't want to hear that shit at all. What the hell? See? Oh, man, see? Yeah. Oh, look, and then the page went somewhere else. Hold on, we gonna go back. Nah, bring Steve Harvey's punk ass back. Now the page just disappeared. Man, nah, we gonna bring that shit back because that's some bullshit. And you out here telling people, we gonna stop all this foolishness. Man, that ain't no foolishness. We voting our interest. The fuck out of here with that bullshit. We're voting our interest. No, that's what voting is about. And I'm about to find this Dr. Claude Anderson thing so y'all can hear Dr. Claude Anderson talk about the benign neglect policy and what they're doing. And that's what they're doing right now. Don't worry about shit for black people. Well, nigga, then what we supposed to do? Compete with what? Man, get your ass out of here, man. Here, let's see.
stay on course, so just let me go off this paper for a minute.
Just listen to him.
Before y'all start calling my radio show and DMing me, talking about why you ain't asked.
First of all, fuck your radio show, nigga. You a hoe. Only niggas that listen to that, most people that listen to that radio show, they bored, ain't got shit to do. Nobody taking you serious.
No hard-hitting questions. That ain't what this is. I'm throwing a lob. This is an alley-oop for a dunk, because this administration needs to get the word out of what they're actually doing and what they're actually accomplishing.
Yeah, like how Meek Mill, shout out to Meek Mill. He's like, somebody needs to explain to me your position of power when you were a DA and locking up all them black people in California. He did say brown people too, but you locked up a lot of black people and was smiling about that shit and had that same stupid, silly ass, suck ass laugh. And she just locking up niggas. She don't give a fuck about no black people. She's a Rachel Dolezal 2.0. When y'all gonna understand that?
So we can stop all this foolishness about what you doing for black people. Can't nobody come.
And those are Sambos and Coons and Mammies that are clapping. And those same, mark my words, David, James, Shawnee, all y'all that listen, mark my words. Watch when the motherfuckers, see, and then the motherfucker keep going back. See, I don't like that shit. Then every time I pause it, it'll go to another video. And I'm pretty sure it's going to another video because it don't want people commenting on the shit. But let me tell you something, mark my words. Mark my motherfucking words. When niggas start losing their jobs and interest rates start going up and then motherfuckers are put in a position of where they got to pay their rent or get food and feed their children, we gonna see about them not just doing nothing specifically for black folk while the Chinamen have their fucking grocery stores and have their own Chinatown, while the Latino community has their own resources and own shit, while everybody else has their own shit but black folk. Then we gonna see, because in Las Vegas, Nevada, I did it already. I drove through Chinatown and Koreatown and showed y'all all the shit that they got available to them. But when you come to the west side, you got Annie's Kitchen, and you got a couple of little restaurants over there, but it has been gentrified by Jack in the Box and Panda Express and Starbucks and McDonald's and all this other shit, while all these other neighborhoods, when you drive in Chinatown, you don't see a Jack in the Box for miles. For miles. But in the black neighborhoods, it's a Jack in the Box and a goddamn Panda Express and a Burger King right there. So I don't want to hear that bullshit at all.
And expect to get in the White House. You got to play the game different. Y'all know what this is.
Stop. We already watched Obama not do shit for black folk. So now we're supposed to sit up there and let this bitch not do nothing for black folk. As she's cosplaying as a foundational black American. She's already lied so many times. She said she was listening to Tupac and Biggie when she was in college. She went to college in the 80s. Tupac and Biggie didn't come out to the 90s or Tribe Called Quest. So she lied on that. Then she said she grew up cooking greens and all this other stuff. But I already played y'all a video that she grew up East Indian. Her dad already came out and said she was East Indian. So what else are we looking for?
So now this next question is another lob for her to dunk. Because they done a lot, man. But we see, I'm on this radio show and I'm hearing all these people talking about, I'm not voting if they not doing nothing for us. Listen to me. If you do not vote.
Listen to this. Listen to what he's saying.
Analytics will show, they know how many women vote, they know the age you are when you vote. If we don't vote, how we gonna ask for something next time? If you ain't got no voting power, you talking about reparations. Ain't nobody finna give you no reparations.
First of all, I'm not taking no advice from a bald-head motherfucker who married a bitch who was married to a drug lord. I'm not taking no voting advice from no hoe-ass nigga like that, man. Get your ass out of here with that bullshit, man. Man, get the fuck out of here. You're not giving me no advice about voting, no political structure, no none of that shit. I don't want to hear that shit. How the fuck you gonna tell me about voting? We're not finna get no, that's a hoe right there. Basically, if y'all don't do what we say, you ain't gonna get no reparations. Nigga, keep talking that bullshit on the radio, hoe-ass nigga. I can't stand people like that. That's the biggest Sambo you'll ever hear speak on the radio. Y'all better go listen to Cat Williams. This the same motherfucker that was snaking Bernie Mac. Going behind Bernie Mac's people and saying he don't need the job, get a job to me. And motherfuckers want to wonder why Bernie Mac didn't fuck with him. If I was Bernie Mac, I wouldn't fuck with him either. He a snake. And now you're going to come on TV and tell everybody, y'all need to cut this foolishness out. No, because, nigga, let me tell you why. Because the grassroots are speaking and everybody else is seeing that shit. And now what we're doing is passing out the information. Like I said, I told a bunch of people, hey, man, I'm not telling you who to vote. Read Dr. Claude Anderson's Black Labor, White Wealth, and then read Powernomics. And then let's have the same conversation. I guarantee you, you ain't going to just be voting for her just to be voting. You're going to be like, man, this makes sense. Because this is about our kids. If we're not voting our interests, then what the fuck are you doing? That's how the game is played. That's why they got books like The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. They just keep passing the same laws over and over again. They're not helping black people. That bitch definitely ain't helping no black people at all. So let's listen to what he's saying.
Nothing for us. Listen to me. If you do not vote, the analytics will show. They know how many women vote, they know the age you are when you vote. If we don't vote, how we gonna ask for something next time?
Easy. You leverage your vote. You don't vote and then wait next year, then you're just wasting time. No, you demand right now. This is what I want. And this is what we want for our people. And if you can't do that, you're not getting our vote. That's what you do. You don't vote and then ask.
If you ain't got no voting power, you talking about reparations. Ain't nobody finna give you no reparations and you don't vote.
That's the dominant society Democratic Shield talking points. They're not finna give you nothing if you don't vote. Sound like Mogilla Gorilla. Nigga.
Oh, why you think they finna give us some money? No how, man. I hope they do. They owe us. I go down there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Man, get your whole ass out of here. I just wanted to play you a snippet of that. Let me tell y'all something. Y'all better stop listening to motherfuckers like Steven Django, Steven Sambo. Man, you better stop listening to motherfuckers like that. Let me see what I can find. Let me see. Dr. Claude Anderson. I'm gonna play y'all something. Alright, let's see if I can find some audio. Here we go. I want y'all to listen to this. Listen to this shit. Stop fucking listen. Come on, man. I'm gonna have to go to YouTube and find it. Get on my nerves with that shit. Yeah, let's go. Let's see. Hold on. Cause I'm about to go on YouTube and look up this shit. I don't want to hear nobody's fucking TikTok. Fuck that. Man, we about to go on YouTube. And look up. Let's see. Dr. Anderson, hold on real quick. Benign neglect. Man.
Critically analyze.
Listen to this. I want y'all to listen to the great master teacher, Dr. Claude Anderson. I don't want to hear nothing about nothing. Listen to this brother. Listen to him in its entirety.
All the schemes, techniques, tricks, laws, public edicts, everything that the dominant white society did to socially engineer you into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game.
Did y'all just hear what he said? Let's rewind this. Let's rewind it. You need to hear it.
All the schemes, techniques, tricks, laws, public edicts, everything that the dominant white society did to socially engineer you into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game. You've been sold into it. You have no substantive leadership. The leadership you got right now is totally committed to what they set up under the benign neglect policy, which made
Listen to that. Listen to what he is saying.
Benign neglect policy, which means let's fabricate all these other groups to take away the benefits that black folks should be getting. Let's give it to them. We'll fabricate new groups and call them fabricated classes. We'll now come up with things called minorities, poor folk, people of color, diversity, multicultural, and gays. Those are fabricated classes. Now, I wrote the first affirmative action plan in 1970 for the state.
I bet you didn't know he wrote the first affirmative action plan in 1970. Like I said, we'll listen to everybody else but the people that's actually in the game and has played the game. Listen to what he's saying.
Florida, when I was over education for the state, I did not write it for minorities. I didn't write it for gays and humpbacks and lesbians and midgets. I wrote it for black folk.
Let's rewind it again. Let's rewind it again. Man.
1970 for the state of Florida, when I was over education for the state, I did not write it for minorities. I didn't write it for gays and humpbacks and lesbians and midgets. I wrote it for black folk. In the history of this nation, they have given up over 1 billion acres of land to whites. Free. And that not only did they get the free land, but the free land and double and triple in value every 20 years.
Thank you. Didn't I tell you that Martha Washington owns 17,500 acres of land? How many of that does black folk own? While we's up there voting for Kamala Harris, that ain't gonna give us shit.
That's why they got all the wealth. And on that land, all the gold, silver, chrome, bauxite, magnesium, and timber increased in value. And out of that 1 billion acres of land. And by the same token, they denied giving black folk 40 acres. Forget civil rights. Go back and correct the conditions that you impose on black folk.
Thank you.
You cannot deprive a group of people for 500 years of the fruits of their labor. For no money, no value, no land, no history, nothing. And they say, go out and compete. Compete with what? And so I tell all my civil rights leaders, you are foolish with the things you keep pushing. Why do you keep telling black folk to go out and fight for equality and equal opportunity? I don't give a damn about no equality and equal opportunity.
Man.
And here we are, and we buy the garbage every time because we don't understand the issues. Now, so for us, unemployment is the same as it was back during slavery. Why? When I looked at the records, I found out back in those days that in major cities like Washington, D.C., Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York, and Atlanta, Georgia, and Savannah, that even though you only had 200-some thousand black folk that were free, all the others, almost 6 million, were enslaved. But yet, what was the unemployment rate? They had full employment as slaves. But out of the 200,000 that were free, guess what? The employment rate for them was still what it is now, almost 35 to 40%. Just sleeping in alleys, sleeping in attics, sleeping on the corners, begging for food, walking, trying to do handyman jobs.
Wow.
The same thing with imprisonment at that time. That even though you only had 200-some thousand black folk free out across the country, I looked at
I hope y'all hearing what this brother is saying. I hope y'all really hear what this brother is saying. Now we're going to talk about voting. Dr. Claude Anderson, voting. Your interest. Let's see. No. What blacks get for their vote? If you not get anything, why would you exactly? Hold on. All right. How the black? Here we go. I want y'all to listen to this. I want y'all to listen. This one, Dr. Claude Anderson was real young. This is back in the day. All right.
For over 300 years,
Just listen.
blacks in America have been racially undermined by the government and barred from equal opportunity legally, politically, and economically. History. However, blacks control only 2% of the wealth in the United States. Good evening and welcome to Detroit Black Journal. I'm your host, Darrell Wood. Coming up on this edition of the Journal, we will engage in a reveal.
Let's get Dr. Claude Anderson on. Here we go.
Forming of American public policy as it relates to blacks.
That's correct. What we want to do is get about the business for the first time in the history of this nation, design a policy that is strictly devoted to the economic and social reform of Black America by giving them a national plan that would be proactive and
See, listen to what he is saying. Why is it when we speak up for us, people get scared and start bucking their eyes? We should be, if we built the country for free without repayment, why are we not saying, hey, bro, we are owed something? So just listen.
solving some of the major impediments and conflicts and developing broad racial strategies for dealing with white racism in this country.
A major thrust in that direction is the release of your new text, Black Labor, White Wealth. That book is incredible in the respect that...
Hey, this nigga was like, that book is incredible. Look, let me tell y'all something. For all who is listening, this is no disrespect. If you come across a black person and they have not read Black Labor, White Wealth or Powernomics, stop having a conversation with them. Don't even go on. Don't even go on. Say, read this book. If they say they don't want to read it, then just leave them alone. Because some people want to just take the blue pill smoothie and go to bed. So just let them go to bed. Just let them go to bed.
It destroys myths, long-held fallacies, lies, and illuminates history and factuality as it relates to the black condition in America. And by that, more specifically, the institutionalization of racism is exposed for what it really is in American society. You kick over some sacred cows in this book, don't you?
Yes, I do. And that was my primary purpose. What I wanted to do, Darryl, in writing that book was two things. First of all, I wanted to send out a wake-up call to Black America. And secondly, I want to prove three things. First of all, is that are blacks in the predicament that we're in, and have we been in this predicament for 400 years because what's been told us, first of all, that it was by divine decree, or that it was genetically inherited, or was it really social engineering? I went back and found out that it's primarily social engineering. That
social engineering.
Black folk in the predicament they're in because of social engineering. And what's happened to us all this time, Darryl, is that we've got locked into the lowest status of a no-win monopoly game. That means that we've had wealth in this country redistributed or maldistributed based on skin color going from the lightest to the darkest, lightest, yellow, brown, black. And the wealth has been skewed. So what happens in this country now is you got the white society controlling almost 100%.
100%. What did I tell you about California's economics? Didn't I tell y'all that 19% of black Americans own homes in California and 62.3% of white folks own homes in California? That's a huge disparity.
Of all the income, the wealth, the resources, the business, the corporations, the privileges, and all levels of government.
And therein lies the problem.
That's your
blacks.
problem. And the issue is race and resources. And black folk don't have the wherewithal to change their conditions.
And the reason that they have not historically in America had access is because of the way as you point out in the book, the legal system has been stacked against.
Please go read In the Matter of Color. Please go read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander.
Us. The political system has been stacked against us. The access to real property, wealth, money, land has been prohibited by law.
That's
the
right.
Supreme Court has been used as an instrument against us.
And it's still being used as an instrument against you.
Explain that.
Because initially, when the Constitution was written, all the Constitution did was picked up the old public policy that had already begun on black folk. When black folk first arrived in this country in 1619, there was approximately 20 blacks. By 1634, the Maryland colony came into existence. That time you had about 40, 45 blacks in the country. By 1638, something very profound happened, Darryl, that every black person in this country needs to understand. Something very, very profound. What happened in 1638? The Maryland colony put out its first public edict. And what that edict said is that black folks shall never enjoy the fruits of white society. That is very key to what's been happening to you for 400 years.
Yep.
And that is written and established in American code. It
That's
has been
right.
codified as law in
That's
America.
right. And so, and between that point, let's say for about next 20 years, for instance, the European colonies were putting pressure on this country, saying, hey, we didn't send you to America to have a good time, just enjoy yourself and sit back and relax. We sent you to relax. We sent you to America to produce some wealth, some resources for our European continent. And most of the colonies were sending letters back saying, hey, we can't do anything in this country. We don't have the wherewithal. It would take us a lifetime to clear the...
Exactly. They could not do it on their own. He's talking about the dominant society. They could not do it on their own. They'd send letters back to goddamn Europe telling them, hey, man, we can't do anything. We don't know what we're doing. We can't do anything.
Forest to move the bricks, to get rid of the snakes and rocks. And we need a labor force to do it. And at that point in time, the white society knew they had a need. So what happened, they brought together a very strong sense of community around that need and said, we got to find a way of resolving that problem. And they looked back at that public edict was put out in Maryland in 1638, which says black folks should never enjoy the fruits of white society, and they expanded it.
Right.
So by 1664, 1665, every colony in the United States enacted a slave law that says black folks shall now constitute a subordinated, excluded, uncompensated, non-competitive, managed workforce for the personal confidence and wealth building of white society. And that became your public policy that remained in existence up until recent times.
Why isn't that taught in public education now? Why don't we know that?
Because what happened immediately after that, all the institutions jumped in and all the nations in this country jumped in to justify slavery, enslaving the black folk.
Thank you.
And so the religious institutions said, well, we have to base it on something. So they said, let's base it on Bible, on biblical principles. Saying
That Bible that y'all read is what they basing it off of.
that the blacks were offshoot of Ham, so therefore God had decreed that black folks should be enslaved. And that stayed in effect for about maybe a couple of hundred years, about 100 and some years, and all of a sudden they moved over to the biological and said, well, blacks are just basically biologically inferior.
So
And that's what the bell curve is telling you about now.
There's a book called The Bell Curve. Go get the book.
And the bell curve, of course, is the controversial book assaulting black intelligence as genetically inferior.
That's right.
As the author alleges.
That's right.
Is the case.
That's an extension of that original public policy that was put into place back in the 16th century.
As an extension of that.
I hope y'all listen to this, because I get tired of regurgitating it. So I'm like, you know what? I want the family, people that listen to this podcast, I just want y'all to hear for yourself. Even though y'all probably done heard it 1,000 times, I just want you to just take a time, do what you do, clean your house, do whatever, and just listen to what this brother, Dr. Claude Anderson, is speaking about. This man is a genius.
Public policy. I think the key here is public policy. What you've talked about and outlined in very brief form is how public policy has been designed in this country around the suppression of a singular racial group.
That's right.
I want to deal with some definitions.
Okay.
Public policy was used to the extent that black people would be suppressed. Coming forward in time, blacks thought that the great salvation of the race could be summed up in one word: integration. Is that true?
Listen.
Yes. And let me go pick up that public policy and bring you up to that. That public policy stayed in effect until, let's say, 1705, for instance. In 1705, it was codified into what we call the slave codes.
Yep.
And the slave code said at that time defined how in the future all whites would behave and how blacks would behave. And that's why what they call the Southern ethics, where blacks could not challenge whites or raise his hand to defend himself against a white person.
And in fact, white people were told that it
Remember, Southern ethics.
was their duty, in fact, to suppress
That's right.
and severely
That's right.
handle blacks
That's
in order
right.
to enforce the status quo, or they themselves would be considered
That's
lawbreakers.
right. In other words, they violated the code, the white code. And see, in that time, what the code said is that every white must enforce this code. Every religious institution must subscribe to it. All levels of government must be responsible to it.
Yep.
Okay, it must be passed on through your social customs, Daryl, and also through your laws. I put a lot of those laws in the back of the book.
Right.
Okay, and once that was codified in 1705, everybody understood the law. Then by 1710, for instance, Virginia then said, now that we have a unified white community, they then broke up the black community by passing what they call meritorious manumission.
Right.
Meritorious manumission. How many times have you heard David from No Compromise, James Youngblood, me, Shawnee, everybody? A meritorious manumission. A meritorious manumission. Hayward Shepherd. Go read the books. Go read Powernomics.
1710. And what that says now is to make sure that blacks never have a strong sense of community.
Go tell on another nigga and take up for a white person, and you get meritorious manumission.
Unify itself, we will grant meritorious manumission. That's why all these southern states had meritorious manumission laws to any black who goes against his own people.
Which in effect
So what is Steve Harvey doing, ladies and gentlemen? What is he doing? I just played you Steve Harvey. What is he doing? Y'all better not be talking this foolishness, talking about do something specific for black folk. Don't be talking all that. What is that? That is a meritorious manumission.
That blacks could be freed.
That's right.
To enjoy rights and privileges in the society for becoming traitors to their own race.
Right.
Bingo. And what is Steve Harvey? He got a radio show. He got a little bit of money. That's what they do. They give you a meritorious manumission. It's like at the Core Plantation. You start telling on niggas, specifically niggas, most supervisors and managers is going to give you meritorious manumission. They're going to give you a little different role, give you a little bit of money, and you're going to feel good about yourself. They'll do that to you.
A free black, but it would never could be comparable to a white.
Right.
So when that law was passed, then we found that a black could be rewarded for squealing another black, what we call crabbing. And out of a possible 150 so-called insurrections or revolts, slave revolts, a black person squealed in every one of them.
Thank you. In every single last one of them. That's why Denmark Vesey got caught. Because the nigga told.
Okay, and he was rewarded for squealing on blacks. That's where you get the crabbing in the black
Which is
society.
why there was virtually never a successful black
That's
revolt.
right. But see, and that kind of a system was never used against any other group in this country.
Yep.
No other group, Chinese, Hispanics, or any other group.
Well, you make a strong case in the text for the singular selection, the purposeful separating out of people of the black race for this kind of treatment on this continent.
To make sure there was never a strong sense of community, because a strong sense of community was a threat to the white society. I remember that public policy said you should be non-competitive. And as a matter of fact, the only monument right now in this country that I'm aware of that even recognize and honor the black for being that kind of a black is still in existence up in Harper's Ferry. You know where John Brown had his raid that night?
Sure.
If you ever go up there right outside the hotel, there's a big brown
Remember, Hayward Shepherd.
box there. And there's a big monument carving to the black slave who jumped off the porch the night John Brown's troops entered the town, and John Brown killed him. The town erected a monument to the Sambo, saying this is the kind of black we like.
Going from the historic.
And that Sambo was Hayward Shepherd, who was jumped off the porch. John Brown and him is coming. John Brown and him is coming. Massa.
Codifying of suppression of blacks to the point where we had a civil rights movement in this country. The first civil rights movement is not the one that gets talked about very often. In the book, you talk about the first time blacks were freed, and you talk about how that freedom was really an illusion. What do you mean by that? Why weren't blacks free after they were emancipated following the Civil War?
Because first of all, what they gave blacks was three things.
First, before we go into it, remember, Abraham Lincoln, he freed slaves. Abraham Lincoln, Emancipation Proclamation. Listen to the real reason.
Them free. And secondly, they gave him supposedly 14th Amendment due process and a right to vote. And but those things had no power attached to them. Blacks could not protect themselves with that. Because, see, everything in the society was based on your ability to be able to take care of yourself.
Yep.
And so blacks were set free at that time, naked, penniless, ignorant, defenseless, without clothing, animals, livestock, land. And so they were abandoned. And you gave him civil rights and the 14th Amendment. He couldn't use them. See, first of all, let's take the 14th Amendment, which is now the ones we hear a lot about. Between 1866 and let's say the 1900s, that 14th Amendment was used 319 times, okay? Out of that, 314 times was by corporations, not blacks. Blacks used it about 4 to 5 times, and guess what happened? They lost every time. Blacks never used the 14th Amendment until 1954.
Man.
But all major corporations use it. That's when you hear about corporation now being an entity, a person.
Or a person,
They used that 14th Amendment that was given to blacks, then gave it to the corporations. And what they did, and immediately in 1870, they took blacks' rights from them, okay? Because they didn't have any power.
So once again, the rights were basically suppressed.
They were just suppressed.
That which had been written into law was now effectively thrown out.
Because blacks couldn't protect themselves. They had no power. And also what had happened at that point in time is that between 1619, when blacks first came in the country, and until the emancipation, all the wealth in this country and all the power was built around the black slave himself. That's where your money and power came from.
Yep.
Contrary to what people keep talking about, well, you know, land is the most important. Land was never important. Land, Daryl, was totally useless without
If you didn't have slaves, you just had a whole bunch of land.
blacks. As a matter of fact, President Jackson said that blacks brought 75% of the value to land.
Oh, Andrew Jackson, the dominant society president. Why is it we want to take everything else they say, but then when they give black folk credit, we don't want to take none of that credit?
You can come in this country, an immigrant, go any place you want to find all the land free. You can just drive a stake in the ground and say, I own from here to that next street. Nobody cared. It had no value. It only had value when you put black slaves on it. And that's why all the wealth was concentrated in the South.
Y'all need to hear this. Y'all need to hear this. For real. The land means nothing if you don't have black slaves on it.
As a matter of fact, in 1860,
Right.
out of 66% of all the persons in this country had over $100,000 worth were in the South.
Right.
As a matter of fact, and out of the 5 million blacks who were enslaved, they had a net investment value of over $8 billion. That $8 billion was more wealth than all the other corporations and federal government put together. As a white man in the South who had 2 black slaves was richer than any person in the North. But if you threw the average person in the North, I threw in his house, his business, his land, his clothes, his net worth, and his bank account.
Well, primarily because it was free labor.
It was free labor. It was free labor.
Thank you. But y'all niggas up here talking about, Steve Harvey up there talking about, man, well, y'all better stop talking about them doing something specifically for black folk. But we up here giving out free labor to build this country without repayment. But now we finna go vote for an East Indian who's gonna do the same shit that the dominant society does. Man, fuck that.
Worked them until they died.
That's right. And the thing with a black is you had to work him unto death, but you could not let him grow old.
Right.
Because you had no
then
way
he
of taking
became
care
that
of him.
Economic liability.
That's right. He became a liability. You had to work him to death early.
Seeing then that the policy was set to keep blacks in a place of servitude, cheap or free labor, the country set about to make a set of rules, enforce them through institutions, government, the courts, and basically ensure that blacks through the immigration process would not grow to equal or majority status in the population. In the book, you outline that we're built in as a, quote, minority, unquote, never to exceed a certain statistical level.
Right. In the early part of the 1700s, black slaves became such a good thing that everybody was hauling black slaves into the country. And from Africa, they shipped approximately, from most of the research I can get, somewhere between 35 and 50 million blacks out of Africa. Over 2/3 of those died en route and then captured. But in this country, the black slave population, let's say, hit its peak about the 1750s. We had over 34% of the general population in this country was black at that time. That scared this country to death. They found out that the number reached that high. And in the southern states like Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia, the population of blacks had gone somewhere between 55 and 60%.
And exactly why Southern white folk, they don't like niggas, but they don't want no immigrants there because they're only used to dealing with black folk. That's why a lot of the Southern states, they just rather keep it black and white. They don't want no immigrants there. That's why a lot of the Southerners are like, fuck that immigration shit. Don't bring that shit out here. We don't want no illegal. You notice it's not Southern states where they're taking those illegal immigrants. They're taking them to places like Chicago, New York, California, places where it can be tolerated.
And they said, and so what the colonies started doing then was start saying to England, and remember now, England was franchising slavery. They set up a franchising system for slavery. They were making all the money and the wealth. Most of the wealth of this country was going to England.
Oh, the royal family. The aristocrats. Oh, you mean the Queen of England, Prince Charles, and his kids? That's where their money comes from. That's why they don't like talking about it. From slavery.
Because England passed laws saying this country could not produce anything except cash crops and send it to England. England would manufacture it, and send it back and sell it back to them. Right. And that's what the Revolution War was over. The Revolution War was over black people. The wealth that black people were producing in this country in cotton, textile, rice, indigo, tobacco.
You heard he didn't just say cotton, textiles, tobacco, all the wonderful things that everybody has built their wealth off the backs of black labor.
Acid, syrup, sugar. That's what the fight was over. But the black population hit somewhere around 34%. And after the Revolutionary War, they said the first thing we're going to do is to make sure we get that black population down because it's a threat to us. So in 1790s,
Dr. Carl Anderson speaking on Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, genetic annihilation.
right after the Revolutionary War, the first act of the new Congress was to pass, enact what we call the first naturalization and immigration law, which says this is a white country, white man's country, period. And we slapped a zero quota on blacks in this country.
No other group had the kind of quotas or limits in terms of immigration to this country placed on them that blacks did.
That's right, because they did not want blacks to be a threat. And that's why they also passed manumission laws to stop anti-manumission laws, saying that we do not want more than 2% of the blacks in this country to be free slaves at any particular time. And that's why a lot of people could not free their slaves, because they were threatened by the free slaves. Because the worst thing in the white society's mind was an uncontrolled, unmanaged black person, because it violated the public policy on blacks. And so they stopped a lot of people from freeing the slaves. But those immigration laws is part of your problem that you have now in Haiti. See, you cannot, they don't want to raise that immigration. The present population in this country with blacks is 12.3, which is exactly what it is for Africans in the world, 12.3. And with the black population of Africa, the world population. But also it's important to know that that's why integration won't work, for the same reason.
Now, you come forward in time to the question. Now, the book spends a lot of time outlining the historical problems facing blacks. Spends a lot of time talking about what's wrong for blacks in America, as well as what's wrong with blacks in America. Lest people think that this is strictly a history lesson, let me rush in to say that the book is filled with exposition on solution-oriented plans and strategies.
It is.
For turning this situation around. It doesn't necessarily call for violent overthrow of the government either.
No, we don't do that.
It is not, and let me ask you this question, is not an assertion of socialistic or communistic principles, is it?
No. See, the basis of the book is saying that black people's future is in their past. You have to understand it. And secondly, from my perspective, see, I've never had any inclinations towards socialism, nationalism, any other ism. My only ism is blackism in this perspective. That I want black folk, I see myself as an...
My only issue is blackism. I love that. That's a shirt. My only ism is blackism.
Pragmatism, saying how do we get from where we need to go as quickly as possible to save ourselves from becoming a permanent underclass in this country by the year 2013.
And one of the ways that you say...
It's 2024, and what are we, ladies and gentlemen, a permanent underclass?
Will not work.
It's
integration.
Okay, integration
Well,
won't...
black people think that integration is the way to go.
No,
and white folk have thought forever, liberal white folk have thought that integration is the way to go.
And liberal white folk are your Democratic Party. But let's listen to Dr. Claude Anderson.
Sure, if I was white too, because I really got you boxed in now. See, because that public policy, let me go back to that public policy again. At the turn of the century, that public policy was picked up by our organization, NAACP and Urban League. They saw it and they said, now we're going to come into existence and try to help black folk. What can we do? They were only permitted to help black folk in the context of the public policy. The public policy said black shall be a managed labor force.
A managed labor force. I want everybody to look at themselves in the mirror and take a statistical data analysis of your corporate plantation and see how many foundational black Americans are calling the shots and how many foundational black Americans are getting the shots called to them. So who's in charge of the labor force where you work at? Is it a foundational black American, or is it a dominant society or an immigrant?
So the precepts of the Urban League and the NAACP was to help black folks find equal employment opportunity. See what I'm saying? And by the mid-1920s, Garvey and somebody said, hey, hold a second, how about some economic? And they said, no, that's out. And so we could never move blacks into starting their own businesses as a national public policy. So in the mid-19...
Because again, the law stipulated that blacks cannot have businesses compete with whites,
they couldn't
do anything that would bring profitability to blacks and take it away from whites.
Either through they utilize legal and extra legal means to keep blacks out. In many cases where blacks, you see, nobody in this country was more qualified, for instance, raising tobacco and raising cotton than black folk, okay? And taking care of livestock. In many instances, they would even poison the blacks' livestock. They would burn his cotton, burn his wheat. So blacks could not, and that's why if you look in the back of the book, you see all kind of laws that says blacks should not compete with blacks and compete with whites and a whole number of things. But by the mid-60s, what happened in the middle of the civil rights movement there was that, contrary to what's popularly taught, black folk didn't get free in the mid-'60s. What happened at that point in time was that that technology finally caught up with that labor need for blacks.
Yep.
And for the first time, the public policy said, hey, we no longer need blacks to open doors and shine shoes and wash dishes.
Because we have modern technology.
Mop floors. We got technology that can do it. And when that happened, something very profound happened again to the public policy. And what they had to do then was say, the white society said, aha, now we've got to change this public policy. So what they said is that now that we no longer need blacks, what we have to do is go into a new period called benign neglect.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. Modern technology, the dominant society said, we got to do something else because this isn't going to work because we don't have no need for them. Listen.
Or callous indifference,
Right.
or out of sight, out of mind. So then they said, so Monahan came up with a policy by the late 60s saying, or early 70s saying, it's time for us to move from focusing on black folk to focus on Indians, Hispanics, and women. But they also said what we must do in our new public policy is, first of all, make sure
Indians, Hispanics, and women. And who's about to be the president? Right.
that all of our public policies at every level express no guilt for what has happened to black folk. Point one is pivotally important. Point two is that we show no responsibility or obligation to help blacks in any
Y'all hear that?
manner. Okay? Which means affirmative action and anything else. Point three is to make sure nothing is done to transfer that wealth that I told you, that 100% wealth on one side of the sheet over to blacks, that never occurs.
Right.
And that is what we've been locked into from the mid-'60s up to today.
But once again, the civil rights movement focused on integration. The
Right.
civil rights movement said if we can move into their neighborhoods, if we can go to schools with them, if we can sit at
Don't
the same
mean
lunch
shit.
counters with them, then we'll make the breakthroughs we need to make to end this codified evil called racism.
Because we had been pursuing, since that original mandate in 1638 excluded us, saying black folks should never enjoy the fruits of white society, that's been locked in our mind to enjoy the fruits of white society. So we want to integrate.
Yep.
But nobody else in this country ever wanted to integrate. What they want to do is assimilate. They've always had the option to assimilate by the second generation.
The difference being?
The difference being that they can move in and blend in. They can intermarry and blend in, and by the second generation, you can't tell who's who. Or they can have the option of setting up a little Haiti, or a little Havana, or a little Cuba, or a little whatever you want, or a little Italy. But black folks want to integrate, and integrate killed us for a number of reasons. I'll try to get these points in very quickly.
Go ahead.
One, first of all, integration is nothing but a new modified form of segregation. Only thing now, you've broken your people down to a smaller unit, and you defied the first premise of power, which is you no longer have numerical power. Now you're in little small groups all around large urban areas. That's point one that's going to knock our brains out. Point two is that the white society maintains what we call a racial balance, or what we call a tipping point, which says that I will accept black folks primarily at 0, but I would tolerate them anywhere from up to 5 to 8% of any given population. But the minute they cross that 5 to 8% population, it is no longer integration, it's now invasion, and I must take action against it. So I'll either take my kids out of school, put my house up for sale, move my business to the suburbs, or I will resign from the organization, okay? Because I'm not going to let him get that dominance over me. Third thing that immigration is done for you, it destroyed all your major businesses because they use the highway system to drive expressways right down the center of every black community.
101 freeway in Los Angeles, California. Yes, yes. Yes, yes.
In this country. And where blacks used to have major business opportunities in the country, they were all destroyed. 4, we find that also we got a major capital drain. There's a basic rule in economics which says you must spend your money in your community and make it bounce 8 to 12 times before
Listen to this.
it leaves. Black money never bounced one time. Black folk have approximately $300 billion passing through our hands annually.
Right.
That money doesn't even bounce in our communities.
Bounce meaning like this. Supporting David from No Compromise like my sisters and my cousins did when he was putting his paintings up. We didn't just bullshit and say, "Ooh, David, we like your painting." We talked with our money. We made our money bounce. Because I know my sister got some because I've been to her house and I saw the paintings on the wall. I know my cousin Mariah did the same shit. Saw the paintings on the wall. We bounced the black dollar. That's bullshit. One more, how you doing? Tahuti Ma'at Ra. That's a foundational black American business. Sells herbs. The Corey Holcomb 5150 show. I got so many damn t-shirts from Corey Holcomb. Freedom Paper Company. Toilet tissue and soap from the Nation of Islam. Brother Risa Islam, when he wrote his book, Message to Millenniums, that's the Foundation of Black American brother, purchased his stuff as well. So I don't want to hear that shit. Those in Tahuti Ma'ara, I constantly order from him. Pharaonic Design, I bought clothes from them. So I don't want to hear it. My money is always bouncing into the black community. And I also purchased a painting from my brother Dave from No Compromise. So certain people know how to make that money bounce, and some people don't.
Other things that you mentioned in the book that are evils to black empowerment. We don't have a lot of time left, but in the closing moments, I just want to throw out some key terms that you express in the book and get your very brief reaction to them. First of all, black empowerment is not the same as empowerment, is it?
No.
Why?
No. Because empowerment, in my definition, means giving people the psychological feeling of competence and ability to compete. Now, keep in mind, and I told you back on that public policy, they did just the opposite in the conditioning system, was to tell you that you could never compete with the white society.
Right.
And that they passed laws that restricted you from competing. And they also, in their conditioning element, they made you see your future and your well-being only through the eyes of the master. Okay?
Yes.
And so when I talk about self-empowerment, I'm talking about how do you get my people to be able to feel self-confident, that they can pick up resources and be just as competitive as any other group.
Group economic.
And that's all I'm going to give y'all today, man. We went way over today. I don't care if we went way over. I want everybody to listen to this. Please send this to someone that will really, really, really start to delve into Dr. Claude Anderson's Black Labor White Wealth and Powernomics. If you didn't get it from that, I don't know what to tell you, because he broke everything down for you. And you damn right I played Steve Harvey. They're playing the benign neglect shit. That's what they're doing. Y'all better stop worrying about what they gonna do for black folk. Man, what the fuck you mean? She not even black. She cosplaying as a black person. She Rachel Dolezal 2.0. So I hope y'all really learn something from this, because I always learn every time I hear our great elder, Dr. Claude Anderson, speak. I'm going to say it one more time and I'm done. If you are having a conversation with someone about politics and they have not read Black Labor White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson or Powernomics, and they're a foundational Black American, stop talking to them, refer them to the books, and keep it moving. Guilty, nigga. I'm out. Peace. I better stop worrying about, man, Steve Harvey is a hoe. For real. A Sambo.